Yes, Your Honor, Representative Philip. So,
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise in support of this bill. And in doing so, I cannot help but reflect on the fact that over the last couple of years in this Parliament, I have lived and hoped and listened, in particular in the hope that we as a party, we as a Parliament, as the leaders of this nation, that we would have reached a level of maturity that would enable us, even if we disagree on some policies, to move forward in the interests of the people of Barbados. And at last, I continue to be disappointed. If I begin by looking at the 2018 Barbados Sustainable Recovery Plan, I think what this plan is to me, Mr. Speaker, is really just a validation of the policies of the government and the fact that we have gotten buy-in from all of the actors within the private and public sectors, except, of course, for the opposition Barbados Labour Party, which is no surprise to us. But in the face of the obvious, in the face of the fact that the estimates are the estimates, and in fact, for the benefit of the newer members who seem not interested in learning, and in particular, the member for St. George South, the estimates are not prepared by the ministers. The estimates are prepared by the functionaries in all ministries. And it's for that reason, and maybe there's a lesson here also for certain sections of the trade union movement, it's for that reason that the civil service themselves appreciate the difficult times that we face in terms of our fiscal challenges, because they see the numbers. The numbers are not padded by us as policymakers, and the numbers are not padded by us as ministers for the sake of going through, as I heard, of going through a process. The reality is, and for the information of those who seem not to know, is that whatever happens come the 5th of March, or whatever happens come the next election, the government of Barbados continues. It'd be irresponsible of us as a government not to take the necessary action to ensure that come the 1st of April 2018, that government continues. Civil servants will still be working, they still have to be paid, the hospital still has to operate, schools still have to operate, etc. Things don't come to a halt. And again, that's why I began by saying my disappointment and the hope that people would have matured. So you heard pronouncements like, after Parliament dies, that in fact that they hope that the PSs would not let ministers do what ministers feel like doing. There are no checkbooks in ministries to be signed by ministers or anyone else. And in fact, PSs, as the accounting managers across ministries, are like hawks when it comes to deciding what happens within ministries. You cannot even ask for $500 or even $100 unless there's a line that it falls within. So it's either immaturity or ignorance that allows some people from the other side to make this kind of pronouncement. And I would put it down to immaturity, Mr. Speaker. I put it down to immaturity. Now, we have not hidden the fact that there are some challenges. And indeed, we have been going through this process for the last couple of years. And I listened yesterday to the member for St. Peter, who I'll make 2 points about his presentation. Point number one is I think that we all accept that in fact that our biggest challenge was the fact, and you heard it also from my colleague and friend from St. James South, that we gave up, and we have to repeat this, that we gave up almost $300 million in revenue. A cliff that we are yet to climb out of. $300 million in revenue. So, now, we could have taken the position that given the serious decline in revenue, that we will make sure and that we would automatically chop $300 million off our expenditure. But it's not as simple as that. And you would hear continuously from the Minister of Finance that when you hear about cutting subsidies and transfers, etc., the majority of the transfers you're speaking about are actually salaries, actually wages and salaries. So it was not a case where we as a caring government, we as members of parliament who have constituents who will be impacted by whatever the decisions that we took, that we came up with a big knife and decided that the simple thing to do, let's cut all of our expenditure, let's have a balanced budget and go away. Because we recognize that whatever decisions that we take will have an impact on the ordinary man and woman who we love and represent. It's as simple as that. But we have had that challenge in terms of our revenue. We have not hidden, and it is there, and you keep on hearing the leader of the opposition, the leader of Her Majesty's loyal opposition, saying that come out and tell the public what is happening. But Mr. Speaker, how many times have we gone through this exercise? The central bank governor holds the quarterly briefings, and it's all there in terms of the challenges that we have as a country. So this notion that we are hiding the challenges that we have, that there's some big secret, tell the country what's happening with the foreign reserves, etc., it is there for all to see, and we have explained continuously the challenges that we're facing and what we intend to do to arrest the challenges. We also accept, Mr. Speaker, that there have been no magic wand. Now, the member for St. Peter advocated, as he has been for the last 2 years or so, that in fact, that we have reached a stage where we should go into the IMF program. His pronouncement is that the IMF is no longer the cruel monster that was perceived many years ago, and in particular, I think he referred to the Jamaican experience, etc. All ideas will be taken into contention. We do not believe, I don't think that anyone on this side believes that we have the answers to every question in Barbados. Otherwise, there'll be no need for consultation. Otherwise, this document will not mean anything. The genesis of this document, the member for St. Michael South, the Right Honourable Prime Minister, said, let all ideas contend. Come, let us sit down together and reason. And we will then chart a path where we would have all buy-in. Because one of the challenges that we have had, Mr. Speaker, has been that in taking some tough decisions, certain sectors, there was no buy-in. So now that you have buy-in, in particular from the trade union movement, it'd be difficult for them to come back, come next year or come year after, well, hopefully that they will not, and say that we did not know what you were planning. We did not agree the way forward. That's all that we're trying to do, build consensus, so that whatever decisions that are made will be made by all actors in the interest of Barbados. In that regard, Mr. Speaker, it is clear to me, and which is why I began with the issue of maturity. It is clear to me that the pronouncement of the members of the Barbados Labour Party are out of sync with the estimates, are out of sync with the realities of Barbados. They're out of sync with exactly what they have been saying. They themselves are saying that we have an issue in terms of revenue. They themselves have been saying that we have an issue in terms of expenditure. Yet they're saying that as soon as they return to office, they will waive all university fees. They can find the money from somewhere. They're going to roll back the NSRL. They're going to find the money from somewhere. They will provide all the attendance for the buses. They're going to find the money from somewhere. Maybe they have money hidden away that we don't know about, that they're willing to donate to the government. But the reality is, and our reality is that when you look at our challenges, we already accept that we're going to have a struggle in terms that we do not have a balanced budget. So therefore, we're going to have to do some borrowings to even satisfy our not too ambitious programs across all ministries. And most instances, you'll see that there are no glorified capital works programs, none whatsoever. That having been said, I believe, sir, that the public of Barbados who is matured, the public of Barbados who is well educated, will be able, as they have started doing, from the information that I have received, I believe that the other side have realized that in fact, that the only way that they can believe that the validation in terms of their message is by busing people across Barbados. So take 6 buses up to Rice's and say that you had a big crowd. And take 10 buses down to St. Lucie and say that you have a big crowd and stuff. Wherever they go. But if you take your own supporters to hear your own message, you better be careful that you're not fooling yourselves. Because certainly, as I said in another place, the persons that I've been speaking to and hearing accept the challenges that we have. And in particular, as I said, the civil servants who do these numbers, who crunch these numbers together, understand the realities of Barbados, understand the serious challenges that Barbados have. So you come and you say that Barbados will have the lowest growth rate in the region, that compared to Haiti and Antigua, et cetera, you call some names. But you don't compare apples to apples and recognize that, in fact, that in some cases, if I use Dominica as an example, with the kind of aid that Dominica is receiving or is scheduled to receive, well, hopefully Dominica will grow by 5 or 10 or 15% within the next couple of years, because they almost have to start from zero. So you have to compare apples to apples. But they're not interested in that. But as I've said on more than one occasion in this honorable house, being in opposition is hard. But it's for that reason, Mr. Speaker, that from time to time, when you also hear the leader of opposition suggest, let us come together as a parliament. Let us meet. We are willing to help you. Except for one person on that side. One honorable member on that side. I do not hear the level-headed presentation that would suggest that they're capable of sitting down, taking the politics out of any discussion with us, and making meaningful suggestions. One only of all of them. And it is sad. It is very, very sad. Because I'm all in favor of allowing all ideas to contend. When I say, I don't do like member for St. Thomas and sit and write notes as copious as the honorable member does. I give her credit for that. But I do sit and listen to presentations in the hope that I would hear something that would suggest to me that we need to rethink what we're doing, that there's another path. But I hear the same presentations. I can almost tell you who's going to say what. Remember, for St. Michael Northeast is a good example. On Monday, when the honorable member began, I said, but I've heard this before. I know what's coming next. And as if the member herself realized that she said it so often, the member said, you know what, I'm done with this. I sat down and decided instead that she would insist, or she would ensure that her speech is sent out to the media. I could have sent it out before the member began, because I knew what the member was going to say. It's the same thing that was said in 2017, the same that was said in 2016, the same that was said in 2015. I could have told you, Mr. Speaker, I could have saved you the time. I could have saved the public of Barbados the time of having to listen to the reputation. The same old speech. Barbados is falling down. We are the worst place to live and work. There's sewage in the street. There's violence in the schools. The hospital not getting the things. If you need to take toilet paper into the hospital. On and on and on and on and on. But I probably live somewhere else. Because the only place that I hear the darkness, the only place that I hear that Barbados is falling to pieces, that Barbados is the worst place to live, and in fact, the only place that I hear that I'm ashamed to be a Barbadian is from members on that other side. Only place. And just yesterday, Mr. Speaker, I am so concerned about where we are going. I'm concerned in particular about the messages that we are sending, because there's a link between some of the lawlessness that we are seeing and the message that we are sending. Let me give an illustration. The government of China kindly donated some equipment to the Barbados Defense Force, as they have been doing for the last couple of years. The equipment comes into the Bridgetown port. Some wise person takes a picture of this equipment and makes a link between this equipment and the amendment to the Police Act, and this validation that the government planned to do something to take away people's rights and arm the defense force. Indeed, right? How come we find money to buy these vehicles, but we can't buy garbage trucks, and we can't give money to the QEH, etc.? a donation from the People's Republic of China to the Barbados Defense Force, that if something happens in this country tomorrow, Mr. Speaker, if this year's hurricane season is scheduled to be as active as 2017 or even more active, and let me say this as minister responsible for the Department of Emergency Management, if there is one organization that Barbados can rely on in the event of any kind of catastrophe, it is the Barbados Defense Force. So rather than comment on the equipment, there's a comment on whether or not they don't need additional equipment to assist us in our time of need. But that travels all across Barbados. And you get this WhatsApp messages, and I say, but what has gone wrong in this country? What has gone wrong? But if you send a message as leaders that we cannot be trusted, if you send the message as leaders that the Prime Minister wants to hold on to power at all costs, and that the Attorney General wants to be part of a police state, but people must jump to conclusions. And if you allow, and if you're part of chats on your own WhatsApp, and you're not mature enough to say, well, this is wrong, this is foolish, then the people must go out with some authority, because they can say, but I was part of that, and the member for St. Thomas was part of the group and did not say, well, this is right or this is wrong. So even in not saying anything, sometimes you're actually saying something. I know you're old woman. Yes, sir. There are some things. So as I said, I listened to the member for St. Peter, and his recommendation is that we go to the IMF. Another very important part of the honorable member's presentation, Mr. Speaker, is this. And in fact, I heard the member for the city, again, even though critically touching on these points. We have continuously been saying that Barbados is not just an economy. It's not just an economy, it's a society. And I listened and I sat there and I smiled to hear the honorable member for St. Peter in his final presentation in this house at last says, Eureka! I now see what the government has been saying for years, that it is not just about crunching numbers, that in fact is also about people. It's about sending people to school. It's about looking after parents. It's about teaching values to our children. It's about ensuring that elderly in our communities are looked after. It is about all these things. It's just not about crunching numbers. So it is just not about going to the IMF and ensuring that our budget is balanced. Sometimes, sir, as happens even in our own households, you have to take on a little bit of debt to ensure that when you move forward, that some things are addressed. So I was happy, I was gladdened, I was heartened to hear that finally the light went off in the eyes and ears of the member for St. Peter, and hopefully one day, the member for St. Thomas would also get it. I know her head is hard, but even that honorable member, Mr. Speaker, I look forward to her seeing the light very, very soon. There are some other things that we need to do, sir. Sir, I listened last Sunday to the soon-to-be representative for the people of St. Michael North. I listened to that lady's presentation with glee. And as you know, sir, that lady championed the National Initiative of Service Excellence. And one of their programs was 100 improvements in 100 days and stuff. And many parts of the private sector took on that initiative. And I reflected that one of the things that we should really do as a government is on a continuous basis see how we can do that ourselves across ministries. I heard the member for St. James South yesterday speaking to the whole issue of efficiency. Just this morning before I came down, I stopped by one of my friends for breakfast, and the postman came in with his pension check. And I said to him, but why would you be receiving a pension check? But it is so much trouble for you to get into your motor vehicle, go to the bank, stand up in a line, be charged by the bank nowadays for cashing your check. Why would you not get the monies placed directly onto your account? To me, that's very simple. According to him, for various reasons, that has not happened, and I admonished him. I said to him, but man, get it done. It must be a waste of time for you to have to go through that whole process on a monthly basis or bi-monthly basis, etc. And that's just about a simple illustration. But across all ministries, and I agree with the member for St. James South, and it is maybe one of the things that we should do, we should try to do within the next 100 days. Why should I have to leave my home to pay my car insurance, my road tax, my house insurance? Why do I need to leave the safety and security of my home, or even line me with my friends to do all these things that one should be able to do by a push of a button nowadays? And across all ministries, if nothing else, and it probably will not cost us a lot. And I know that some work has been going on, but whatever happens, it must be sped up. Efficiency. It will not be found within the confines of the four corners of these estimates. But improved efficiency must be the buzzword, must be the one thing that across all ministries, if nothing else, that we do, that we take to a completely different level. I say to my ministry, the Office of the Attorney General, and the Ministry of Home Affairs, that I look forward to the day when I don't have any files on my desk. When in fact, all I need to do is turn up with my laptop or my tablet and receive all of my correspondence. Be able to edit cabinet papers and send back, as opposed to receiving the files and more paper, etc. I've accumulated more paper within the last 10 years than I did ever in my life. And there is no reason for it. There is no reason why, as a government, we should not move towards being as paperless as possible. And as I said, I am confident that that would also take our efficiency to a different level. We have to be bold, Mr. Speaker, as a government. One of the errors made by the last administration, and you know, sir, I want to share something with you so that I now remember. Just this morning, whilst having my breakfast, I did a little bit of reading. I know the member for St. Michael South believes that only he reads. And I want to share this with you, sir. I want to share this with you, sir, because, sir, it occurred to me that in fact, that this was an error made by government. And here's what it says, sir. When to make decisions. So this is a book by John Maxwell. It's called the Maxwell Daily Reader. 365 days of insight to develop the leader within you and influence those around you. It says, it's very short, but I'll share it with you, sir. It says, many people make decisions when things aren't going well. They look for relief in the despair of the valley instead of waiting for the clarity that comes from being on the mountaintop. Why? Because it takes a lot of effort to get to the mountaintop. And when you're experiencing the darkness of the valley, it's always tempting to make changes that you hope will relieve the discomfort. When you're on top of the proverbial mountain, that is the time to make decisions. Here's why. You can see your situation more clearly. You are moving to something, not just from something. You leave those around you in a better position. You decide using positive data, not negative. You are more likely to move from the peak to peak instead of valley to valley. On the other hand, when you're in the valley, the most important thing you can do is persevere. If you keep fighting, you're likely to get your second win, just as distance runners do. And it said that only when runners are exhausted enough to reach that place do they find out what they truly can accomplish. If you keep persevering while you're in the valley, not only will you likely make it to higher ground where you can make better decisions, but you will also have developed character, which will serve you well throughout life. Now, when I read that, I thought, sir, that you know what? As a country, sir, when we were on the mountaintop, when there was lots of money around, we did not take the initiative, sir, to move to the next mountain. We did not. And when the trough came in 2008, when we were faced with the challenges, when we were down in the valley, that's when this government then had to come in and decide, how do we take this country back up to the mountaintop? And I use these two illustrations, sir. We came to office, and that's why I thought that it was very opportune that I read this morning, 14th of February. When we came to office, sir, here is what was driving this economy. Tourism, international business, construction was down because the peak of the 2007 had disappeared. That's it. In terms of tourism, sir, we only had the three traditional markets. Canada, United Kingdom, and CARICOM. No, because USA was down. And then, of course, then you had the bubble in terms of 2008. The first thing that we had to do in terms of tourism, and we're going to do the tourism as a head, I believe in stuff, was to see how we can diversify our market. Because we recognized it was folly of us as a country to place so much store in just two markets in particular. And that's why we went across the world trying to find new markets for Barbados. We did not neglect our traditional markets, but it's not by accident, for example, that Europe has rebounded how it has, and that the United States has rebounded how it has. It's not by accident. It's not by accident that we're going into Latin America and South America, because we realized that it is folly, even in the valley that we were in. We realized that it made more sense, sir, to diversify our market. It should have been done when we were at the mountaintop, when we had lots of money to spend. But there was not enough vision to do it then. But we have done it, and we continue to do it. Is that? Similarly, sir, when we had the money that was boasted about by that side, they did not diversify the international business sector. It is not by accident that within the last couple of years, more double taxation treaties were signed by this administration. By this administration, than at any time in the history of Barbados. Again, because we accepted that we cannot and could not allow Barbados to be dependent on only one source market in particular. We're grateful for it, but you can see what happened. What happened, as I described earlier, and as you heard from the member for St. Peter and St. James South, is that the Canadian government gave the same incentives to other actors, to Cayman Islands, and the Bahamas, and the British Virgin Islands, who in particular were all zero tax jurisdictions, as opposed to us who had a tax rate of 2.5%. And you heard the illustration of one company in particular who was paying about $80 million. So can you imagine you have a choice between paying zero and paying 80 million? Well, it's a no-brainer. It's a no-brainer. Right? So we accepted. Again, sir, as I said, down from the valley, persevering on behalf of the people of Barbados, we accepted that we had to make changes, and we went out into the marketplace, as we are still going out into the marketplace, to ensure that we diversify our economy. My friend and colleague, who he and I share the same birthday, although I told him that I'm older than he is, as you know, have been championing the cultural industries bill. Right? If there is one mistake that we have made in that regard, sir, is that we have to be bold enough to ensure that it is more than adequately funded, because if we are to let this sector have the opportunities that it deserves, if we are to seriously move this sector to the next level, where it contributes directly and indirectly to our economy, it has to receive the nourishment that is required. But it also means that we have to take the funding from somewhere else. So we have to be bold enough, and we should be bold enough as a government to move it to the next level. Because I, like my colleagues, are very optimistic that in fact, that this is an area that is ripe for exploitation by many of our talented young people. Again, they're positive in things like receiving WhatsApp. I saw one of our young people on ITV, I believe, on The Voice or something, flew across the United Kingdom and singing. He was bold enough by himself to take a flight to go, and what I heard said, but he from Barbados, in truth, he ready from about here. Talent, 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 right and ready to be exported. But we must give them the resources, and we should be bold enough as a government to accept that indeed that in new industries that you need to put in the seed money, and sometimes you have to take risks that you normally would not take. But for the sake of the development of our young people, we need to do it and move to the next level. Similarly, sir, if we accept that renewable energy is another sector that as a country that we can exploit, we need to provide the resources required. We have to. So if someone comes in the country and say that we're willing to assemble photovoltaic cells in Barbados, not just for local consumption, but to be exported across the region, you put everything in place because it's a new potential industry for us. New training for young people. Move whatever roadblocks are in place to ensure that this can happen. That's what we should do as a government. Identify these new sectors and exploit them. We are on the right path, Mr. Speaker. We are coming out of the valley through perseverance. All we now need, sir, is a little bit more belief, even from the other side. Even from the other side. All the correct signs are there. Yes, sir, there's no denying that we have some challenges in terms of our reserves. We accept that. We're not hiding from that. On more than one occasion in our cabinet, we have discussed how do we address this challenge? What is causing our reserves to come down at the rate that they are? How can we ensure that, in fact, that we have significant cover as is required? We are addressing it. There's no hiding from it. We are addressing it. But the most important thing, Mr. Speaker, as I said, is that as a government and as a party, and as a party that I am very proud of, we have realized, or we have accepted, that the only way to move Barbados forward is through new ideas and new policies and new initiatives. I am satisfied, sir, not only via these estimates, but via many conversations that we have had, many discussions that we've had as a government and as a cabinet, that Barbados is on the right path. We accept the challenges that we have. We accept that all isn't well. We accept, sir, that there's some big decisions that have to be made. Now, sir, I see you're pulling the mic towards you. Let me just make this last point, sir.
Yes.
10 more minutes, sir?
No, you need to wind up. 2 minutes to wind up.
So let me just make this last point, sir. Sir, I heard this morning, there's a chap, I think he's from Christchurch itself. He dresses sometimes in dresses. I heard him on the radio. You don't know him. Anyway, this whole issue in terms of our sewage challenges and stuff. Sir, we have to accept, sir, that if it was as simple as pulling a switch, that no government who is caring and no government who's going into an election campaign will not pull the switch and everything would be well. Again, I listen, I wish that there was a way for us to have the kind of open discussions on the floor of this parliament as we have sometimes in the members' room. I listened, for example, yesterday to the member for St. Peter saying that he would have loved to have done the West Coast Sewage Project, but at that time it was an $800 million problem, and he could not get it done. that he would have loved to, in fact, have addressed the issue in terms of the South Coast and Bridgetown at the time when there was lots of money, but they could not get it done. We have the challenge. If there's nothing else that one can say about this government, we have never run away from a challenge when it comes to governing Barbados. We will never run away from a challenge, and Barbados remains safe with us, sir. And in that regard, I give my support to this bill. I'm obliged.